Grand Rising family. Good. Well, some of y'all still say good morning, and that's okay. Good morning. Good morning, and Grand Rising family. Dream is clearly up listening to the video because I hear it on our kids' speaker. Grand Rising, what's up? I want to talk to y'all about one of the biggest mistakes that spiritual people make when healing. And I got to talk to y'all about this because I'm having a lot of real-time experience with it presently at this moment. And that is, a lot of times spiritual people do not rewrite the story. The biggest mistake spiritual people make, one of the biggest mistakes that spiritual people make when healing, is they don't rewrite the story. What do I mean by that? I mean, you constantly try to heal, transform, release this exact experience that you had, right? And one of the major problems with that is that we have so much belief, so much emotion, so much, we are so ingrained to a specific story that it's so hard to release it. But when you rewrite the story, when you tell a new story, when you give your story a new meaning, this is how you truly can really heal. This is how you can release. This is how you transform your perspective. This is how you transform your emotions. So again, one of the biggest mistakes that spiritual people make when healing is that they don't rewrite the story. They keep telling themselves the same story over and over and over and over again. And here's another thing that I want y'all to understand. Healing is a continuous process. Some of y'all may think, why are we always talking about healing? Healing this, healing this, healing that. Healing is a continuous process. Transformation is a continuous process. Once you overcome one thing, you will discover something else. It's just a natural part of life. When you are done healing, transforming, and doing the work, you will no longer need to be present in this human space, in this human realm, in this human body. So understand that there's always going to be one thing or another that you are constantly transforming, healing, renewing, rewriting. At this point in your life, you may be rewriting your story about abundance. At this point in your life, you may be rewriting the story of relationships. At this point in your life, you may be rewriting the story of how you relate to yourself. At this point in your life, you may be having to rewrite the story of your body. A lot of times, spiritual people are not rewriting the story, they continue attacking the past. You continue attacking the past from what it is that you know, okay? What it is that you've experienced. And the thing about that is, when you continue trying to approach, heal, transform the past without retelling the story, you're still focused on the negative, the low vibrational aspect of whatever happened to you that made you be who you are now. So again, one of the biggest mistakes that spiritual people make is that you do not rewrite the story. And when I say rewrite the story, I mean you don't flip it on its other side. See, every situation that you've ever faced has two sides to the story. Every situation has two sides to the story. And when you are healing, it's important for you to discover the other side of the story. That other side of the story could be what you perceive or what you take away as the positive side of the story. The high vibrational side of the story. The side of the story that empowers you, that strengthens you, that gives you clarity, that gives you understanding, that gives you the motivation to keep going. A lot of times, spiritual people, you keep retelling the same old story. And you keep on telling the story from the side that hurt you, that traumatized you, that disappointed you, that made you to be who you are today. Okay? And so, as a healer, right? This is what I want y'all to know first of all. Whenever you work with me, I don't heal you. That's not what I do. I give you the tools to heal yourself. I give you the tools. I give you the perspectives. I give you the understanding. I give you principles. I give you rituals, practices. I give you specific things that you need to do, specific to you and your situation, to heal yourself. But here's the big thing, though. Here's a major part when it comes down to it. When it comes down to it, when opportunities, when situations, when triggering moments come up, in those moments is when you must retell the story from the high vibrational, from the new perspective, from the space of you actually being healed and transformed. Let me say that again. Whenever you are triggered, whenever you are in an experience that reminds you of your past, that is the opportunity for you to actually show and prove that you have healed and that you have overcome. Those are the moments where you need to rise up to the occasion. And you have to do it consistently. You have to do it over and over and over again until that way of being, until that state of being becomes the norm for you. Let me know in the chat if y'all understand that. Put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you understand the simple fact that you can talk all you want to about your past. You can talk all you want to about your past. But in order for you to really transform, in order for you to really heal, you have to rewrite that story. And once you rewrite the story, in the present moment, in this moment, in each present moment, you have to live up to the story that you have rewritten. In the present moment, meaning when you're triggered, when you're feeling some type of way, when your mama does what she does, when your husband does what he does, when your sister, when your children, when they do what they do, that reminds you of the abandonment, that reminds you of the shame, that reminds you of the abuse, that reminds you of the guilt, that reminds you of all of those things. It is in those moments where you must rise to the occasion and you must behave from the perspective of the person who looks at the story opposite of how you viewed it when you were a child or when you were, before you were able to see the high vibrational side of it. I give you a real-time example, just happened to me yesterday. And in the work that I do, right? When I study, let me tell you what I've been studying. I've been back into studying Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. The Pathway of Surrender. I've been back into this book. I've been reading this book every night. And that's because I understand what energy we are in. In fall, everything is about letting go. Everything is about surrender. Everything is about release. So I've been reading that book. And whenever you study anything, whenever you're growing in any aspect, Spirit is always going to test you to see if you can apply the wisdom, if you could apply the knowledge and turn that into understanding. See, learning is not just about knowing something. Learning is about mastery. Learning is not just about being able to regurgitate. It's not just about being able to repeat. It's about having enough experience with the thing that you get it 100% and you can express it, you can live it easily and effortlessly. right? So, simple fact that I've been reading this book, I could expect that I'm going to be thrown with some tests and with some challenges to live up to what I'm receiving from this book, right? So, yesterday, this happened yesterday. Yesterday, I was in my feelings, right? I was feeling some type of way. I had some emotions going on. I really had this abandonment wound that was coming up, and I was just feeling some type of way. And I was feeling some type of way because I am in my whole household, we're in a major transformational phase where things are changing. They're changing for the better. But when things are changing, even for the better, there takes some letting go. There takes some letting go of things that you used to be comfortable with, things that you may have used to enjoy, but they may be in the way. So, anyways, I'm feeling some type of way. I wake up in the morning, I'm not feeling my best. I just do not feel emotionally well like I'm used to feeling, right? And every morning, y'all, every morning when I drop Kara off to work, every morning I talk to my mother on the phone. And I grew up with a mother who I was not able to be emotionally vulnerable with. How many of y'all grew up with a mother who you could not be emotionally vulnerable with? For whatever reason, emotions in that conversation was not the norm. Let me know in the chat if that's what you grew up with. That's what I grew up with. Love my mother, and I know my mother loves me. But never could we talk about emotions. Never did we talk about feelings. Okay? So every morning I talk to my mother on the phone. Yesterday morning, I'm in my feelings. I'm feeling some type of way, right? And there was a resistance in me that did not want to talk to my mother on the phone. Because I knew that if I talked to her on the phone, I was going to have to talk to her about how I was feeling. Because she's my mother, she's going to tell that something is wrong. But the story that I had told myself was that my mother cannot understand me emotionally. Emotionally, my mother doesn't understand me. She never understood me. When I was a kid, she never understood me. I would cry and she'll tell me, stop all of that crying. I'm going to give you something to cry about. Instead of asking me, what am I crying about? Right? So that's the type of mother that I grew up with. And that was the story that I used to tell myself, that I cannot talk to my mom about things that are emotional. I can only talk to her about physical things, actual present physical things that need to be dealt with. Like the kids need to be picked up from school and, all of those physical things. But feelings, can't really talk to my mom about that. Never been able to talk to my mom about that. That was the story that I was telling myself. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to retell the story and live in that new story. Okay? So my mom calls me. I missed her phone call in the morning. Not on purpose. I just missed it. Missed her phone call. And Spirit was like, all right. My spirit was like, what you gonna do? My spirit was like, what you gonna do? You talk to your mama every morning. If you don't call her this morning because you feeling some type of way, that says you are not ready to heal. You are not ready to change. You are not ready to have a different relationship with your mother, a stronger relationship with your mother, a more vulnerable relationship with your mother. And that says that you got more work to do, especially as a spiritual healing coach. So I picked myself up. I said, you know what? I'm about to call my mother. Because there's no way that I am a spiritual healing coach and I'm not going to live in the practices that I know I have to live in so that I can be that reflection to my ladies that I work with. And so I called her. With all the fear, with all the anxiety, with all of the stuff in me that's just like, you never talk to your mom about emotions. Why are you calling her now? Just act like you didn't see her phone call and call her when you can talk. I called her. The first thing she says to me, how you doing? I said, I'm okay. And she says, baby, what's wrong? And then she got all high strung, all high energy. What's wrong? Desiree, tell me what's wrong. What's wrong? I'm like, Mom, I'm okay. I'm just not feeling well emotionally. And that was for the first time in about 20 years. Hear me out here. That was the first time in about 20 years that I was able to truly cry to my mother and let her be my mother. And she consoled me so well that I was like, wow, this is a major transformation within our relationship. Because I accepted her as my mother and I let her be what she's always wanted to be for me, but maybe in the past she couldn't be. And I continued to tell myself the story that my mother can't mother me. She cannot console me emotionally. Physically, if it would come, even though I don't need money from her or anything like that, but if it come down to money and stuff, she got it. If it comes down to taking care of my kids, she got it. If it comes down to the physical world, she got those things. But when it came to my emotions, no, she can't help me with that. And because I decided that I was going to rewrite the story, because I decided that I can have a healthy, vulnerable relationship with my mother, because I decided that I was going to allow my mother to be my mother and me stop feeling like I got to be the mother. Because that's just a lie that I kept telling myself, as a form of protection. So I decided to look on the opposite side. Because the opposite side of the story of my mother not being emotionally available for me was that she was teaching me how to be emotionally available for myself. And she was teaching me how to be honest with myself about how I feel and how to express that. And so yesterday, I was able to be a product of my own healing work. I was able to overcome a story that I was continuously telling myself. And so I cried on the phone with my mom and we talked and she gave me great advice. And I was just like, wow, it was beautiful. And then later on that day, she randomly texts me. She says, I love you so much. Just be happy, baby. And she said, you are my strong daughter. So now the story between my mother and I has been rewritten. And now I know that I can talk to my mom. I can be vulnerable with my mom. But if I would have never rewrote the story, if I would have never challenged myself to live in that new story, I would have continued to believe that I cannot be vulnerable with her and that we cannot have an honest relationship. Okay? So again, one of the biggest mistakes that spiritual people make is that we don't rewrite our stories. And then we continuously try to rationalize or understand these negative aspects that have happened in our lives instead of looking at how those perceivably negative experiences have actually benefited us. And then once you understand how to shift your focus from the negative perspective to the positive perspective of it, right? Because it's all about focus. It's all about what it is that you are thinking about, right? Once we learn to shift from the negative or the trauma side of it, and we learn to find the grace, the goodness, the beauty in our experience, when we learn to find that, when you discover it, it's important that you implement it in your daily life whenever things come up. It's important to implement in your daily life whenever things come up, okay? And you do it over and over and over again until it becomes so natural, so normal that, you are totally transforming. You are a new being. You are a new person. Now my mother and I's relationship is new. It's renewed. Our spirits are renewed. Our relationship is reinvigorated. And I'm even more so rediscovering my purpose, because what I just did yesterday is what a lot of you spiritual people need to be doing. You need to be breaking free from the story that you've been telling yourself. You need to retell the story and take the opportunity to live in the new story. Okay? Over and over and over again. And you do that until the manifestations, the emotional well-being, the physical well-being, the spiritual well-being is made manifest in your life. All right? I'm off of here. Let me go make lunch and breakfast. Love y'all. Peace.